try to match the speed of the cycling of their legs. But then I realized speed is actually the result of the length and speed. Not just speed. So I was doing like this, but when I should be, I realized I can be a sprinter. So I tried to
There's a couple more steps in the Frank Yang story there. But
I love the relatability of the example. Because everyone basically has moments in every day of their life where they can tell the difference between where they have an opportunity to like take a breath and sort of regain some of their sovereignty and will and choice around their happiness and to not suffer, to not be anxious, to not be depressed. And that those were great examples. You're on the train is delayed anyway. You may as well not perpetually focus yourself on the delayed train and suffer and be anxious, but instead liberate yourself from that, be more free, and then enjoy the nature, the clouds, or if you want to read an email and get through something, or whatever you're doing, but not ruminate on that.
it's like every single second of our lives have been atomized and chopped up into like increasingly small moments. That each one of those moments, each second of our lives, as if we embody stress, pain, and misery and suffering, becomes a prison. Prison to prison to prison to prison to prison. So I looked up as I had that exchange with my friend, and I see a girl on the screen. I do work by Eckhart Tolle, and I was like,
That's a really important point, is don't make your life prison to prison to prison. Like, increase your amount of possibilities, increase your choice architecture as much as possible every single moment, so you're not just locked into just one excessive anxious rumination, so that there's more possibilities for you.
Yeah, even when you go into the matrix or go into the prison, still be perceived as infinite, because nirvana is nirvana.
Not doing closing the loop right there. Big bro. For the person on the screen, even though I'm anxious and suffering, this is still non-dual. This is still infinite.
It's a big thing to that. Well, it is true though. I think talking about
somebody's gonna quote to me the other day.
I missed the joke. I missed the punchline.
I think the Matrix of reality is the punchline. I think the whole thing is it's very funny. It's really very funny and strange.
Cosmic joke.
Kind of zip out of yourself and look at that we're like these meat creatures trapped in this crazy world of minutes and moments and trains that, it's just very weird and none of it makes sense until like a panda sitting on a tree. They're just like, what the fuck are you doing? Chill out. But on the subject of like explaining, the non-dual to the stressed person on the subway, I heard a great quote the other day. It was like explaining philosophy to somebody it's cruel to explain philosophy to someone who has an empty stomach. So it's like a lot of people, and
it's
I think
a cool quote. Yeah,
it kind of brings me to like the central point of what I've wanted to talk about for a while, and this episode coming up really fits perfectly for me because it burns in me, and I see spiritual people, I see people who are enlightened. I even had this conversation with a friend recently about like Eckhart Tolle, like, oh, he doesn't get it, blah 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 blah, where it's like talking about philosophy and awakening and all of these things to the vast majority of people in our world is an insult, and it's aloof, and it will never be understandable to them from the framework that they're operating from, because society is designed intentionally, latticed to keep people from being able to work their way up that sort of ladder of just basically meeting their basic needs. And this has been studied from the sociological perspective and from the physiological, neurological, psychological, every perspective. People are trapped in a hamster wheel, not a treadmill on their own choice, but a wheel of labor and servitude. And they're working 60 hours a week. I talked to an Uber driver the other day. He worked 100 hours a week. And it's like, you can't, if you're so focused on meeting your next meal or putting food on the table or feeding your children or any of these things that are just pure survival. If you're in survival mode, you can't even delay gratification to think about, anything beyond eating a candy bar right now. It's physically impossible. So it's like
It's more difficult to have metacognition when your basic needs aren't being met.
But in a way, it's easier because suffering brings out wisdom as well. So, but you have to have the knowledge of it.
there's a difference between this huge difference between starvation and fasting. Somebody who is in the desert, I'm going to describe myself as a nutrient. That person is whereas
Well, but
food in their stomach, and all they can think about, they're not going to split switch from hunger into life.
I would say
Careful.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like they can because I think suffering drives more people and also like under really stressful situations where a lot of people are but there's definitely a range to this. That's what happens. It's not like you suffer and then you become a weight or something like that. But just having to acknowledge it. Let's just say like for a person who like suffers quite a lot, but then he read a component or something like that. He has an idea of what he that he wants to stop, he has an idea in his mind, and then if he can apply that in everyday stressful situations, it's actually really rewarding. It's kind of like construction work if you step up.
But yeah, I mean, every single moment of our lives, it can't be a yoga, practice. For me, I honestly have to really meditate. I should. I'm slacking on my metacognition. I feel like my practice is very instrumental. Instead of looking inward, seeing that self in everything, seeing that every person on the train is, and what they're going through is what they're going through. We're all connected on the same simplest way. We're all together. So I feel those people's struggles and I learn from them. And I think I have myself grown through it. But not everyday suffering. Everyday suffering is it's like when something horrible happens to me or crashes in the car and kills your whole family. You actually stop and ask why. But if it's suffering on suffering on suffering,
This is something I wanted to say. Oh, okay. So with talking about compassion, we have to first define compassion and how it's different from empathy, because in my experience, true compassion is what Osho calls a cold love. So basically, you can't really truly be compassionate unless you completely empty out the self. And that's why awakening and compassion go hand in hand. And the action, whatever action that you take before awakening is selfish regardless. And also in this cold love of compassion, it's not filtered through the individual body, mind's emotion.
From heading out the door and kicking off your day to enjoying the refreshing breeze on the beach, when it comes to Seagram's ginger ale, we won't tell you when to enjoy it, because it's good at any time. Whether you're catching the latest flick at the movie theater, enjoying a break between meetings, at a family barbecue, or when you're stirring up a drink for friends, or enjoying one on your own, you'll never be disappointed. Wherever you are, Seagram's refreshing taste is always welcome. Seagram's ginger ale,
when other people also feel that emotion,
any time or place.
That gets in the way of you purely helping them out of the universal well of consciousness. So I would say that there's waking up. The reacting part of it.
But I think for me, I don't know. That's kind of where I live. That's where I sit most comfortably, is in that discomfortable space or uncomfortable space of, experiencing the discomfort, knowing that insights are there, that lessons are there, that's where meaning lies. And I really seek it out. It's kind of a sick thing that, like, to seek suffering in a way, to seek Terence McKenna defined a shamanism as like philosophy through extreme experience, through seeking out extreme experiences that will really show you like the poles of duality, that will show you all the way to the end, to the point where
which is all the cash back you earn on your credit card at the end of your first year, automatically, dollar for dollar, with no limit on how much you can earn. Extra cash.
Some kind of awakening, it's a catalyst for awakening. Yeah. Yeah, same point as
Ash. Come on, how amazing is that? In fact, it's even more amazing when you realize all the places where Discover is accepted. 99% of places in the U.S. that take credit cards. So when it comes to Discover, get used to hearing yes more often. Learn more at discover.com/yes. 2021 Nielsen Report. Limitations apply.
Other things that's just like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to eat 1,000 calories, or I'm going to lift 500 pounds, or...
I think suffering was never really the catalyst for me, even though it is subconsciously maybe, but I never wanted to eradicate suffering. I just wanted to mind fuck myself. I just wanted the universe to fuck me without a condom. I wanted to have an orgy with the universe, and that's why I kept lifting weights and I kept eating all those calories. Like, I just want to see what's beneath the surface. I wanted to penetrate deeper and deeper, transcend to the next level, on and on and on. And suffering, I guess, could be the catalyst of that, but there was never a goal. For a lot of people, a lot of seekers, their goal is to eradicate suffering. Like, I'm asking, why did you get on a spiritual path? I was suffering. But for me, it was just, I just wanted to, quote unquote, like we talked about in the first episode, I wanted to know first I wanted to know what the fuck this Frankian thing is. And after I see through that, this Frankian thing is just a projection, just a hallucination. And what the fuck is doing hallucinating? What the fuck is reality? So that was always my quote unquote goal. And then as a byproduct of understanding reality or understanding direct experience of understanding consciousness, my suffering has been eradicated by 99.9%. So by not focusing on suffering, I actually eradicated suffering.
See, it's interesting. I both totally relate and kind of differ in that. For me, it's like in feeling the suffering of the world, it's like it doesn't hurt anymore. It's like, I know that's a lesson. I know the greatest lesson in the world is contained within that. And that to seek these experiences out, to seek out the cry of the world, to hear it and heed it and run toward it. I know, even in perhaps in a selfish way, in terms of self-realizing itself, all of us being the self, not me, on myself in a selfish way, but the self in my Krishna consciousness or Christ consciousness, the self in all things. Run toward that pain of the self to realize that's me, that's consciousness, which is the whole gamut, the whole thing. It's telling me something. When you get stung bit by a mosquito, you itch. It's your body telling you to slap it, otherwise it'll it's telling you very, very precisely. It's telling you. And I think when you think all the kingdom of God lies within, or you've got to look inward, I think we forget that to look inward is to look outward, is to look at the people around us.
And to look inward requires the basic needs being met of people, which is very big. It's an external thing to have clean air, clean water, clean food, shelter, electricity, education, healthcare. Those are external things that then enable you to inquire with the question, who am I? What is reality? And that's a really important point. It synthesizes science and spirituality. It synthesizes consciousness and physicalism, which is ultimately what we need to do. And to tie in what you guys have been talking about a little bit, is that if you come from a place of like learning that you can take a breath, like 1, 2, 3, count to 3, take a breath before you react, that's fantastic, and that can be really helpful, and you can go and share that with the world and help alleviate suffering totally. But the way that, in a sense, awakening plays into this is that if you go all the way in this process of emptying out all of your conditioning and all of your separation and all of your ego, and rather than this being something that is trying to still extract worthiness from other people. Instead, this comes as just literally the sun itself, enlightenment. It comes as just the sun itself radiating perpetually onto all. And so you're not actually ever coming from a place of needing to get something from other people. So it's almost like the level of purity of service and the level of purity of compassion increases in proportion to how awakened you are.
It's also, the ability to which you can experience awakening, I think is directly proportional to what others do. Martin Luther King said something like, for some strange reason, I'm not happy until you're happy. What affects you affects me, and I think really that's maybe the fundamental disconnect of our entire society. And, you use that word extraction. That's kind of the core value system. It's like an addiction. It's like breaking about this, meditation, kind of breaking you out of an addictive narrative and I think that's corrosive and down to the deepest levels of what most people think a human being is, or reality is. That a human being is selfish, is greedy, that we're competitive, that the purpose of life is to fuck other people over and get what you can and say fuck the rest. And it's capitalism. It's a system. It's an economic system that is a zealous, economic, idolatrous, false belief system that we have implanted and spread over the entire earth and have said, this ultimate separateness that spreads and blankets everything, this sort of anti-Christ, this nebulous thing that doesn't really exist, that we substantiate through money and through trade and through these economic systems, which are really the most corrosive, religious doctrine in the world. These forces are absolutely and directly keeping all of us from ascending, to a high degree. And I see this system really penetrate much deeper, even into spiritual people. Spiritual people still see the system itself, the way that our society runs, the way that our consumer cycle is driven on endless growth and endless consumption and endless, self-interest, maximizing self-interest. I see a lot of spiritual people, trapped in this because it's the deepest unquestioned narrative, the deepest identification and addiction. And I think it even gets me to the point where I have really distanced myself from the conscious movement in a lot of ways, because it's so pervasive, this self-interest, this kind of narcissistic spirituality that is all about me, all about how I can ascend. And then, these people who aren't ascending, they're sheep. They're sheep, they don't understand anything. They don't know what's happening. They're going to fall behind, and I'm going to ascend. And this is a toxicity in our spiritual movement, and it needs to be addressed, because we can't individually ascend. It's self-interest in a way, the self-interest for all of us to get to the point where we change these systems, we change these identifications, this bad dream of humanity, of human history, and get to a point where everyone's needs are met, so that the purpose of society itself, the design of society, is to work people up that ladder of meeting their needs to get them to the point where they can really figure out what the fuck is going on and ascend.
I think enlightenment is the most selfish pursuit in existence. It's all about the self. It's all about the self to the point where at the end, you flip yourself inside out. So it's all about the self up to the point where you realize there's absolutely no self. And then after you realize there's absolutely no self, whatever action that you do is not going to be your decision anymore. So some people wake up and then they don't do shit. Some people wake up, they play video games. Some people wake up, they do things for the environment, they help people wake up, they become teachers. Some people wake up and then they become a CEO. But after you wake up, anything that you do will be an act of compassion. Because it would automatically be an act not for the self, because there is no self. So after you wake up, you don't, it's like we talked about earlier on the other episode, it's like you don't have agency anymore. So it's like, it's not you deciding to do this.
I don't have agency. I'm not free. I wake up and just do what I'm supposed to do, and that's it.
yeah, but it's not like you're not free either, because it's neither free nor not free, right?
Well, just exactly. Yeah. No, I really. It's a beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Yeah.
I was trying to explain this to somebody the other day. It's like, she was like, "Oh, the world is so crazy. I don't know what to do. Like, I just don't know what's gonna happen." It's like, well, you just accept that no matter what happens, it's gonna happen, and really seek to understand, like, okay, the world is hurting and crazy, and I have a role to play. This earth evolved me for a purpose and a part to play in here, and it didn't evolve me to participate in its destruction. It evolved me to facilitate growth and sharing and the increase of biodiversity, not the radical reduction. So it's like finding that sense of purpose. Why are you in this world? How are you participating in this struggle, this adventure of collective awakening, of getting there together, of raising us all up? Because currently the whole social system is dragging us all down. But it's like, I really feel like when you find that purpose, that way, that when you realize that love is all there is, you've got to spread it like wildfire. You've got to spread that shit like crazy. Where you just realize, like, that climate change is real. The earth is dying, and none of us can ascend. And you, as a spiritual person, might think, "Oh, I'm gonna fly away. I'm gonna go to the astral realm. Fuck you." That's not.
That's not spirituality, bro. Spirituality is not about ascending to some higher realm of consciousness. Like I said, spirituality is realizing form and emptiness are identical, and the form part of it is compatible. Well, form you can look at it very pragmatic way, saying like this object has no inherent existence. I can penetrate it. It's holographic. It's only just
particles that are made up of quanta that are spinning around, and at the core, nothing.
Yeah, there's not even quanta. It's just this. There's just nothing here. Okay, but then you can also say this is also form. It's also something. And the emptiness part of it and the compassion part of it and the form part of it is identical. And that emptiness manifests itself in not just the manifestation of objects, but also in like things like compassion. That's why compassion is an emphasis in a lot of traditions. And I also think the reason why compassion is such an emphasis in a lot of traditions is because after awakening, if you don't practice compassion, it's not a guarantee that you become compassionate. Even though like every action you do it won't be for the self anymore, but that still doesn't mean that you're going to do things for other people. You don't know the difference?
Well, yeah, I think it's like you can have this kind of higher understanding of what's going on in the universe on this, very kind of cold and detached, disconnected, particulate way where you're just sort of passively observing things. But we exist in different layers and levels. There are levels to who we are.
Yeah, exactly.
say you're a husband, a father, a friend, whatever, you know, these are all conditional relations, but it's like our ultimate conditional relation is to the earth, is to this planet, and to the species that we are, to this world that we are all a part of, to the biosphere, to our ecosystem, not our ecosystem that is, you know, this totally abstract, formless, you know, this anti-enlightenment to exist in this very weird, we live in an abstraction, you know, a lot of people, you know, anybody who says spirituality isn't real, or, you know, that I'm a materialist or whatever, you know, we live in this really weird world where we live in a world of abstract values. You know, we can say it's a scientific thing, that, you know, economics dictates, you know, that this is the way that things happen to be, but that's totally just a nonsense tradition. I mean, it's not real. It's not based on anything real. It's based on a belief system that we have projected onto the world around us. And I think those people who maybe they have hit enlightenment, you know, maybe they've crowned to the top of the genres, and they've experienced the essential final truths of everything, but they're still acting selfishly, or they're still laying around and not in their purpose. The road is not over, my friend. The road is long from over. And I think for me, I don't know, I can sit at the table with Frank and with Atlas, who I think have gone a lot further in their introspection than I have, but I'm here, you know, we're at the same sort of place. We're walking hand in hand through this beautiful field of flowers where, what's the Rumi quote? Oh no, there's a field, but between good and evil, there's a field. I'll meet you there. That's a beautiful quote. But yeah, we're here, and anything that I learned through feeling the feelings of someone else, not through studying my own brain. I mean, I'm obsessed with my own thoughts, and for years, I was obsessed with studying my own thoughts, and it just killed me. It just fried me. It was a feedback loop of nonsense. And that's what we are caught in collectively. And as soon as I pointed that very sensitive microphone that was my consciousness, my awareness, away from my own innards, and pointed it at other people, it was like everything got so much more beautiful. And not just like nice and good. I mean, I really started to learn and grow and tune into like, what is my purpose? What is my purpose in relation to other people, not just to myself, not just to my own bliss. And through doing that, I found my bliss, you know, which is to communicate this stuff to other people, which is so beautiful to watch Frank transform. And his glow up is the ultimate glow up, the Frank Yang glow up, the body, the mind and heart transformation, that you're at this point where you just want to share this information, you know, like no other spiritual guru, or, you know, you're not a guru. Like I met a lot of spiritual cunts, you know, as you like to call them.
That's what exactly I was going to mention.
And they're not about they're really not humble at all.
It's called spiritual materialism. It's like you said earlier, it's hijacking spirituality for selfish purposes, which makes spirituality really, after 99% of the people who are into spirituality fall under the umbrella. I would say before you completely transcend the self, any spiritual practice is going to be in a larger or lesser degree about the self. So that makes spirituality no different from.
And just to play on what Frank was just saying there, even though you may, because this has happened to me and many other people before, even though you may think you're serving other people because you have this like external facing mentality, which is really important. Like what we're describing, this is what you've been saying, so important with meeting basic needs and stuff. But one place that I would agree with Frank, where there's like a tremendous amount of people that fall into this category right now, is people that are faced outward
new lemon kale Caesar salad is how the textures combines the warm grilled nuggets and the dressing and lemon juice. That's my favorite.
Order the new lemon kale Caesar salad on the Chick-fil-A app today. Available for a limited time. Real guests paid for the testimonial.
They get their clout and how they get more relations and how they get more women, dopamine, this type of thing. Because then they can have more of a, it's called the extended phenotype in Richard Dawkins's language. And so they work on this, on their genetic success based on social clout and how their individuation is being portrayed in the sphere. I've seen that so much. And actually, as Frank just indicated, that so much of what people are hijacking spirituality as are falling into that similar category. And the only thing that holds, the only differentiating factor it's not only passion for truth, but with that is also passion for purification, is passion for emptying yourself out of all of your conditioning and ego and bullshit, so that you can actually serve people purely.
Yeah,
and then exactly. So you have to go inward. You have to continuously go inward in order for what you do when you go outwards to actually be in pure service.
And I would say that going after a while, after you completely go inward, you put yourself inside out. That's why I say complete selfish until you become completely selfless. And then up to that point, everything you do is gonna you can't do nothing except for the self when you haven't realized that there is no self, right? So whether that's spirituality or doing things for the community or for the environment or for the basketball or but that still doesn't mean that you can't service other you can't serve other people and that thing. You still can if you want to serve other people. Still. It's better to be a selfish than be a selfish murderer.
Yes.
It's better to be a selfish.
Exactly. Yeah, but after you become completely selfless, the chance of you murdering a person, unless it's like a self. So that's what I'm saying. It's like after you put yourself inside out, there's no more distinction between inside and outside. That's the thing about inside and outside is that in non-duality there is no such thing. You wouldn't think of doing anything for yourself, nor will you think of anything for the other people. You just do things, and whatever you do would be pure, regardless, even if it's just playing video game. But the tricky part is like after that realization, you don't know what to do. That's the really tricky thing about enlightenment. It's like you don't know what you're going to do afterwards.
You could say that a lot of the organizations that gather people together that have awakening and to work on a collective objective like awakening, like what we're doing with No Limit Society, that seems to be one of the best ways to sort of to take what you said is this. We don't know what will happen to. We can actually create like these landing strips for people as they awaken, and then we can help them integrate. We can help with turning people more and more towards your service as they went in until that duality is transcended. But that's great. Because it is very important to have a community and have home as you go through this process of even physically when you become aware of the oneness of the planet. That in itself is mind-blowing when you begin understanding that your life is interdependent on trees and phytoplankton photosynthesizing oxygen. Because when you take that truth to people that don't understand that oneness aspect to reality, they can sometimes feel contracted because they don't necessarily feel that. It's almost like you can start getting a little bit of porosity of the self. You begin feeling some oneness porosity. You begin feeling perforated, almost based on physicalism to start a lot of the time. You start feeling oneness more in a physicalism sense on a planetary level.
View is in the spiritual community is like, okay, we need to purify the individual, and then collective change will come out as a result of the individual change. And that's sort of where I mean, maybe it's because I'm at a point in myself where I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm qualified to reckon with reality, to reckon with this crazy world from a spiritual perspective. And like when you pulled up that page on class consciousness, Karl Marx came up. And I think a lot of people, I feel like asserting this because a lot of people have become identified with these belief systems, and that's the way that they perceive, the struggle of the system is through this dogma of someone else's purview. And I think Karl Marx is
that's true. You're very right.
Capitalism, but people, and I don't know. I'm mostly these days am in these circles of radicals and of activists and of people who are systems thinkers or economists or political people.
Ideologies ideologies are pathologized everywhere in culture, everywhere, creating lots of separation. Lots of separation.
Well, people try to pinpoint me to an ideology, or when I talk the way that I do, they say, "Oh, you're a communist," or "Oh, you're a socialist," or "You're an anarchist." And it's what are you? What's your thing? And it's like, well, really, it's a spiritual perspective. It's like a common sense perspective that what we are doing is wrong and unsustainable and destructive. And for me, it's like it does come from a place of intuition. I feel like that's a tricky thing to sort of suggest to people, because the Nazis felt intuitively right about what they were doing, or someone in the KKK who is motivated maybe by a love for his daughter because he has a wrongful belief about a wrongful racist belief that is maybe he feels that he is intuitively in the right position and is not continually analyzing that in any sort of
comfy clothes and work cars,
rigor,
and bundling your home and auto insurance
there is no
with
lens
USAA.
Between
it's less hassle
or latency between his
USAA
and his
what
action.
You're made of, we're made
very
for.
Tricky
Call
to
for a quote.
Traverse these states and to go from like this aloof spiritual perspective that often can disconnect people from their connection to systems and to politics and through the everyday reality of our collective shared humanity. And then there's the other side of that, where someone is so lost in the systems approach or in the ideology or in they're only doing that.
Get back, New York,
in their
which
own way,
means getting back to being in the city and getting back to being out of the city. Because Rockaway Beach is still better than Tar Beach. And the billboards on the Parkway aren't going to read themselves. And you have a friend of a friend that knows a guy who's renting a house in the Hamptons.
It's very hard to prescribe.
So come to Duncan for the boost you need to get back right.
And on endless tangent that will only be broken up momentarily and added with another tangent, that we need to shift from that, change the person to change the world. I think the people who are changed on that personal level through the miracles of suffering and the grace of other people and the love that has helped them get there. Like, I am only alive right now because of love. I didn't believe my own life was worth saving. And, that's the only reason that I feel that the world is changeable, that climate catastrophe can be changed today and averted, because my own life, which I didn't believe in at all, was saved by the love of other people. We need to shift to a point where the people at that place, stop preaching a doctrine of, oh, save yourself and then you can be like me or whatever. We need to work together to attack these systems or grab these systems, catch the identifying mechanism of, the human persona, which is this, the ego system of capitalism, of trade and business and economics, the words the politics that make our world go around. We need to take those back from these people who are just reactions of reactions of reactions and work to intelligently program them to meet everyone's needs and get everyone to a better place. So it's a collective awakening. That's the title of this episode. That's really what I feel like is important to talk about in my heart, even though I love just diving into the beautiful poetry of reality, of spirituality. That's
okay, take an example. If you've ever seen mycorrhizal networks, how fungi works underground. Fungi works underground in a two-way resource exchange with 95% of plants. It's unbelievable how it works. And so here's the thing, is that it works in a decentralized way. Fungi works in a decentralized way. Class consciousness and having this everything based on capitalism and wealth and having contracting perspectives. If we go through this not having basic needs met, where I'm working 80 hours a week, I have no time to turn inward and understand metacognition whatsoever, what's going to happen is that your lens of perception is going to get contracted and contracted and contracted. The scripts are going to pathologize your life, and you're going to more and more be fed in the data streams that make you more and more of a slave to that specific class consciousness, that specific lens.
Whether you're successful or poor,
And yes. And the way to break out of that in many ways is these tiny little nudges that can be made for people. Of course, architectural systems, which we'll talk about in a moment, that biomimic mycorrhizal networks and fungi. But talk dirty to me, exactly, because that's ultimately the big picture thing, is like a lot of the existing centralized infrastructures that contract people's consciousness and transcending that to decentralized, liberated architectures that enable people to pursue higher states of consciousness. In essence.
Pause. I just want to say that I love you both.
I love you both too, Atlas and Zach.
Love you guys.
Yeah, this is Atlas is our second conversation, and I love that. I love meeting someone and just meeting them at the heart level. You know, the totality, this is humanity. You know, it's not. This is our most efficient way of cogitating, is this weird evolution that we do, which isn't like create tools and throw things and use our thumbs. It's to like merge our consciousness with somebody else, and our brains grow in the process. So we're like this weird three-headed, wonderful three-headed weirdo right now, you know, oscillating towards some great awakening or some great insight. So yeah,
I have a little input of what you just said.
Yes, go ahead.
I think awakening is going beyond right and wrong, because right now there is still a duality in what you're saying, Zach. Like this thing is right and then that thing is wrong, and I think that's where actually the conflict comes from. Is that a certain group of people thinking their idea is right and the other group thinking it's wrong. And for me, awakening is waking up out of both of these paradigms, out of the green paradigm, the environmental paradigm, and the capitalist paradigm. Because right now those two paradigms are what's causing the conflicts. And each of those paradigms, they're thinking they're right.
Well, but if the yeah, I mean,
well, isn't that just a belief system?
Isn't that what?
Isn't it just a belief system that hurting the planet is wrong?
Yes. So Frank, here's a decent way to put that. That might provide insight. So we're gonna transcend. This is a very good point. This is a very good point. There's one set of centralized archaic infrastructures that exist right now that promulgate separation. Then there's this new envisioned set of architectures that are more around decentralization, that biomimic fungal networks that are more about enabling. They're way older. This setup is actually 1 billion years old up here. And so the 1 billion year old intelligence, like fungi, is what we're aiming to architect next. And so what we're saying is that this is not so in the most non-dual perspective, we transcend this completely. In the dualistic concessionary perspective that we can build simultaneously, we see that these biomimic fungal networks are by far where we need to build our civilization moving forward to increase and accelerate planetary awakening. And so you can hold non-duality where you collapse this and also duality at the same time where there's something to build that's better.
I read an interesting about
Say what?
And I'm sure that the force power.
Say what?
They feel in their logic that these people are if they have their way, then our whole mechanism, which is to them right, because I don't believe that people are anyone out there is intentionally destroying the earth. They're just literally in a cultural delusion. And I think that I don't know. Engaging in like, is there a point where it's better for the world to die or the world to live? Like an asteroid crash here, I wouldn't be wrong. It would kind of be the will of the universe. If humans destroy the earth, I suppose that would, but I don't believe that that's going to happen.
I think it could happen. I like your speech. I love your podcast, by the way. You should link his podcast to the video.
We'll put the link in the bio.
The speech that you gave at the end was very wonderful. About how you're being really optimistic about climate change. The podcast you did with your friends about climate change. At the end, you gave this whole speech about how you're optimistic.
Yeah, I think I said it better. Because it was really presented with like, okay, the earth is going to die. If we don't continue doing this, my dear friend Alex, who's a brilliant environmentalist, who's a brilliant atheist, by the way, complex life so that's it. And if we could go down a deep rabbit hole, there is one better than the other. It's not like one belief system fighting a cells forming process of generation of meaning. It is an illusion. We watch movies and they give us meaning in our lives. And I think that's what our existence is in this world. We are creating meaning on a deep level. We may be a simulation, but it is a viewer, it is a mind viewer, and the whole world in itself is watching us. And I'm not sure if there are formless beings, personalities, like the Bhagavad Gita says, and the Vedas say that there are personalities guiding the universe on an archetypal sort of way. They're not just blind forces of science, of like the Fibonacci sequence, or mathematics guiding the universe. And I think that is a manifestation of a kind of God, a kind of higher order intelligence, and that's what all of reality is. But really, we exist, and life is precious. It's precious because it just fucking is. It doesn't need to be vindicated any more than that. And what I am talking about, what I feel like advocating for, is not a shift from one belief system to another, but it's a shift away from the artificial narrative that we have implanted on reality. This is what reality is. This is what life is. This is what humanity is. This is what we got to do. We got to be successful. We got to convert every living thing into dead profit. It's shifting out of that. It's ending this nightmare and basically lapsing back into this collective. Not just collective awakening doesn't just mean every person individually achieves enlightenment and then they can play video games and be enlightened. It's a deeper level of evolution. It's a true evolution of our consciousness, to the point where we are raising up out of all of these wheels of reactivity and duality and all these narratives, fighting narratives, Marxism versus capitalism. It's an end to all of that, and it's erasing it and saying, okay, we're going to connect with our intuitive, true sense of who we are as collaborative, intuitive creatures that work together to solve problems. We're going to raise us up out of scarcity, which is manufactured. Truly, we manufacture scarcity. We grow enough food to feed 10 billion humans, and there's a human dies of starvation every 6 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Dead person, dead human life, pointless loss. That person could be Einstein. That person could drastically improve the quality of life for all of us. That all of our
we're getting back to routines that used to feel normal before COVID. We're returning to places we used to go and seeing friends in person. We're remembering how to have casual conversations. We know getting grounded again may not feel quite right yet.
Sure.
So we're still here for you, New York. We're at nyprojectinc.org when you need us. You can read our articles or click to call and talk. Whatever works for you. Here to talk, here to listen, here to support. Always confidential and always free. nyprojectinc.org.
I'm not even going there. I'm saying that's just another.
I'm riffing on you. What'd you say again?
I'm saying the move from the egoistic mind to the universal mind consciousness. You're saying that's the meaning of existence, and I'm challenging you on that one. I'm saying that's just another idea.
Well, ultimately, yeah, whatever happens, and we are merely
wait. Wait. Okay. Wait, Frank, because now it's important to challenge what you just said. Is it not generally clear that this expression of infinity, this universe, has within it a cosmological phenomenon that appears like consciousness awakening to recognizing its nature?
I would say there are, like we talked about in the last episode, there is some kind of knowing, there's an experience going on for sure. But anything that is said about that experience, including that it's consciousness or that it's our duty, it's the meaning of life to return to that source, it becomes another belief after a while. I'm not doubting that there is something going on here.
Okay. Hold on. Another way to say that would be that if you or I, Marlo, onward, if we undergo a process of, let's say, uniting with the undercurrent of existence, a very general product of that is to serve, as well as we can, other pieces of life, awakening to the very undercurrent of existence. So that seems to be, at least in this expression of infinity, what is happening. We're not talking about consciousness. We're not talking about just more like there is what appears to be somebody that had a more contracted energy and that now has a much more infinite free energy. And that in essence what is happening is these pieces of life are going from that to does that not appear to be how this architecture?
It's something that is essentially parasitic and addictive that is driving humanity it's a distractive force that will snuff out all of life on Earth, and the ability and potential for consciousness to continue to grow and expand and swell. And this Earth itself took billions of years, life took intelligent life that can cogitate on the form that we can. Although I think animals can, dolphins can, dogs can. They have an awareness of themselves.